Are you facing the decision as to when to begin collecting Social Security? If so, I hope this video will help you make that decision, but I'm going to approach it from a different angle. There's an ongoing debate in the retirement universe as to exactly when is the best time, month and age, to begin taking Social Security benefits. Most of them involve crunching numbers, and that's mostly about finding the break-even point. That's the point when the higher monthly benefit of delaying Social Security finally exceeds the total value of the benefits taken early. For example, if you decide that you're going to take Social Security at 67 versus 70, you have to figure out how many years will it take to recover the missed payments between 67 and 70 based on the higher revenue you'll be getting after 70. Typically, that's going to be 12 or 13 years past age 70 or something like that. You have to assume with that you're going to live that long in order to break even. That's not a guarantee, so I take that only as a guidance and not as a final decision. I'm going to take a different approach in this video. Instead of looking only at the numbers, I'm going to focus instead on your actual need to collect benefits now. This approach is more than just philosophical. In the years that I spent working in public accounting, I learned what most accountants already know, and that's that the answer to every question is not necessarily found in the numbers. Sure, you look at the numbers, but you might make a totally different decision than what the numbers suggest due to other factors. This video is not going to include a lot of number crunching and statistics as a result. Instead, I'm going to relate my own decision to take Social Security earlier than I had planned. And that was determined by need and not by analyzing the numbers. And yes, I had analyzed the numbers, the break even, all of that, and still decided to begin collecting early, not really early, but earlier than I had planned. I suspect a lot of people are in this boat. You have a grand plan as to when you're going to begin collecting Social Security and what is financially the most optimized way to do that. But life gets in the way, and suddenly it's less about the numbers and more about survival. And I think probably for most people, I think that survival aspect really rears its head at some point. As John Lennon famously said, life is what happens while we're making other plans. That's true in retirement. I've said several times in previous videos that troubles don't stop once you reach retirement age. Retirement is just like any other time in your life. There are always ups and downs. Retirement isn't a fabled existence somewhere over the rainbow. You're still on the planet Earth dealing with real world problems. And I think that the key to a successful retirement isn't so much getting it right as much as it is successfully navigating the ups and downs of life. And that's what you've been doing all of your life. Won't change when you retire. So let's talk about situations in which need trumps crunching numbers of Social Security. And I'm going to start with my own decision to take Social Security benefits. Like a lot of people entering the retirement years, I had my own plans about when I would begin collecting benefits and even when I would begin taking distributions from my retirement plans. But as often happens, life went off the rails and I was forced to abandon my plans. But you know what? I'm happy to report that it all worked out and life is good. Here's what happened. Reality interfered with my Social Security and 401k plan withdrawals. I made the decision to begin both off schedule. Not only have I never regretted it, but in retrospect, I realized abandoning my plan was even more important than I realized at the time. This was my plan, very simple. I was going to begin taking Social Security at 67. I thought that was the best time. Yeah, it would have been better if I waited till 70, higher benefit. Take it at 62, you're collecting for more years. 67 seemed like a nice compromise. Retirement plan withdrawals would wait until 73. That's when the IRS would require that I begin taking required minimum distributions. Leave the money there, let it grow, save it for later. That sounds like a set of reasonable and informed decisions, and it was on the surface. But those kinds of decisions only work in a perfect world where nothing ever goes wrong. I don't know about you, but that's not the world I live in. I began taking both Social Security and retirement plan distributions in 2024, both ahead of my schedule. Let me set the scene as to why I did. For several years, I was thriving as a freelance content writer, writing financial articles on the web. It was a great life, I'm not going to lie. I worked entirely from home. I worked my own schedule and consistently earned six figures along the way. In my own mind, I was set for life. If I chose to slow down, or if the industry slowed down, I could still live comfortably on half as much as I was earning. That's an enviable situation to be in. Too good, I'm afraid. The gravy train began slowing in 2023. In 2024, the downward pace of revenue accelerated. Apparently, Google made changes in their algorithm that affected the entire web, and that slowed or sunk thousands of websites, including virtually all of my clients. At the beginning of 2024, I was still making enough money to live comfortably. But as the year moved on, income continued stair-stepping down, steadily and relentlessly. I was 66 at the time, and close to my full retirement age for Social Security. That would have been November of 2024, if only I could have hung on. I couldn't. The drop in income was flashing warning signs. In late June, my wife convinced me to file for Social Security benefits, which I did in the first week of July. I applied for my benefit, was approved, and got my first payment in August. The timing was impeccable. I had really hoped to at least delay filing for benefits actually to the beginning of 2025. I wanted to wait till I was 67. But my wife convinced me that taking the benefit now would relieve my stress about my declining income. She was absolutely right about that. But there were a couple of twists in the story that I could not have anticipated at the time I began collecting benefits. As I said, my first payment came in August, and none too soon, because in September, my wife had an accident and broke her ankle in 3 places. She was completely immobilized for 3 months. That meant, number one, she would need round-the-clock nursing care from me. Taking care of her became my full-time occupation. I didn't know that was coming, but there it was, and Social Security actually made it easier for me to do that. And second, we temporarily lost the income from her part-time job. It was at that moment that I realized that I was experiencing a God moment. I'm sure many of you have had one of those or more in your life. I've had several in my own life. While I thought I was collecting Social Security early due to the decline in my income, it was also preparing me for the loss of my wife's income, my need to take care of her, and something even more substantial: the end of my writing career and the lucrative income. That happened in December of 2024. I wrote my last article in November, got my last pay in December, and that was the end of my writing career. In June, when I was contemplating filing for Social Security, I had no idea any of that was going to happen. Fortunately, my wife had already begun collecting Social Security while this was happening, and I began taking small distributions from my retirement plan in the spring of 2024. I was thinking I could offset the decline in my writing income with those distributions. I was totally wrong. In a weird way, the whole decision to collect Social Security when I did worked out a lot better than I thought, even though it was earlier than I wanted to. The point is, I had to abandon my plan and deal with the situation at hand. No spreadsheets, no break-even analysis, just responding to necessity. Okay, that was my story, but now let's focus on the bigger picture. It might be easy to think of my situation as being unique, but I don't think that it is. In fact, I know that it isn't. My wife and I had the availability of both Social Security and retirement plans, so our situation was far from dire. But there are a lot of other people who are not so lucky. I know some of them, and I bet you do too. Maybe you're one of them in that situation now. Wanting to delay collecting Social Security until the most financially rewarding point, but dealing with rising financial pressure in the present. Here's my guidepost on that dilemma. You can't be hyper-focused on the future when your ability to survive the present is in serious doubt. My point is that if you need to collect Social Security early, then do it. It's that simple. Put the numbers aside and do what you need to do. Ignore what the experts say, because the experts don't know your situation. Only you know the details of your situation, and you're ultimately responsible for how everything turns out. Let's look at some practical examples of a person who may need to collect Social Security benefits ahead of time, or ahead of schedule, let's say. Let's say that you're in your early or mid-60s, finding yourself either unemployed, underemployed, or highly likely to become either. Collecting Social Security benefits now has to be a serious consideration. Optimizing the best month and year to collect benefits is something for people who have stable employment to enjoy. When your career is going down the drain, as I found out, you don't have that benefit. If your income situation is in jeopardy, picking the right time to file for benefits probably isn't an option, especially if you don't have a lot of savings, either in retirement plans or outside of them. While the experts champion spreadsheets, break-even points, asset preservation strategies, and cash flows, all of that goes right down the drain when you're fighting for survival. Here's something I learned in my own retirement experience. Retirement is a lot less about getting it right and more about balancing the ups and downs of life in a way that will make your life comfortable through your later years. Perfect retirements are for people who have perfect working lives and careers. I suspect most of us don't. There's just too much instability in the economy and in the job market. This is especially true for people over 50. They're the first to go in layoffs or when technology makes people redundant. Put another way, the thing we really need to get right in retirement is learning how to ride the waves of our later years. That's more of an art than it is a science. Unfortunately, there's nothing scientific about that. It's more about being able to properly evaluate the circumstances you're facing and to face them realistically, not, with rose-colored glasses or whatever. Also to be able to evaluate the options you have available. And then finally deciding the right course of action this is important, under less than ideal circumstances. That's usually what we're dealing with. If you're not at the best time to collect Social Security, according to what the experts tell us to do what you think you need to do. Then feel good about it. Don't look back, don't regret it. I'm going to echo what I've heard a lot of people in the retirement space say, and that's that they don't know anybody who regrets collecting Social Security when they did, even if it was early. I completely agree. Have you faced an untimely Social Security decision, or are you facing one right now? What did you decide, and how do you feel about the whole situation after the fact? Leave your comments below and let's chat about it. I might even use your comment as the basis of a future video. If you like the video you're watching, hit the like button below and subscribe to the channel. And thank you for watching.